Hello, I'm Karl Stabe, and today I'm joined by Ryan Dewey Smith, the founder of Imperium. We're here to talk about what it really takes to scale, build systems that don't break under pressure, and how to use AI so it actually improves your business. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Karl. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the conversation.
Yes, yes. And we just found out we're both from the Philadelphia area, so that makes it even more delightful. But we're here to talk about systems, and you are an expert in this area with the company that you've built, your past. So, and I just want to go off the deep end right away. You talk about a central operating governance system, because I think, especially with AI, and I know you use Palantir, everything has to work together. And this is what gets it's so hard. Just not just with people, but with all the software you use. And now we're including AI. Tell me a little bit about how you've developed this and then, how are you using it in your business?
Systems or networks are designed and engineered around the needs that they're supposed to support. In our experience and my experience at Imperium, they generally don't support the needs of the businesses. Our platforms operate in more of a constellation analogy where there's inter and intra dependence on the entire group of businesses, today 40 in 20 states, that cannot have disparate systems that do not talk to each other and are in conflict with each other. Having to enter the same data twice, having to have a staff clock into your payroll system and your RCM system, revenue cycle, is not efficient. Having a system that can't communicate and monitor and oversee all the disparate systems to find the errors and gaps is not efficient or productive. What we've built is a system that takes 40 unique businesses operating in unique verticals in different states and have IT and AI tools that manage all the infrastructure necessary to deliver the best in class care.
Okay. So where, yeah, and maybe we can zoom in, where's something that often a lot of businesses get tripped up, and maybe there's a story or an example we can give.
Management of your cash flows, and assets is one of the biggest hurdles nonprofits and businesses struggle with. And if you don't recognize or see a pattern or theme before you're in the midst of it well enough in advance to plan and modify what you're doing, the results can be detrimental. We've seen many businesses that have been around for 50 or 60 years that a system had a hiccup related to a cash collection mechanism that resulted in eventual near bankruptcy because of loss of cash flows.
Wow. Okay. So you can you give us something that then kind of that before and after, like, Tom struggled here and then they implemented this? Like, what is that somebody who's listening that has a small business that's like, okay, yeah, like this is an area I can focus on.
Sure, management of your occupancy or productivity for your businesses. So, in our business, behavioral health, physical health, and human services, productivity is defined by the number of encounters or engagement an individual receives therapeutically that coincides to an authorization that ties to a rate. So, there's multiple aspects in play there. There is no one system unless you design one that can sit on top of all those disparate systems and be sure that each of the checks and balances are in place for all those elements so that you've met your greatest efficiency. So what happens is you're either over providing for what you're entitled to be reimbursed for, under providing what you should be providing, resulting in poor therapeutic outcomes, or having an AI tool, ours is through Palantir, that's a data warehouse management bot that sits on top of all the 15 EHRs we have, our payroll system, our revenue cycle system, and our general ledger system, and is always looking in and making sure that we're meeting all of those KPIs to deliver best in class at the authorized level, billing at the appropriate amounts, and receiving collections in a timely framework.
So what I'm hearing there is, okay, you've got one area in your business and you're saying, okay, if we're going to deliver a great client service and we're going to be able to go there hey, if it's health related, if it's, hey, you've got to send in rug cleaners, whatever it is, what is, how on time are they? How long are they there for? What is the feedback? All these are systems that are working in together to find out what is that end product for those customer and then those group of customers together.
That's correct.
Okay. So,
It's a massive enterprise data warehouse management AI product that we custom designed to manage and help our businesses.
okay. So AI plays a huge role because you couldn't do all this without its help.
Without it monitoring and tracking trends, themes, basis of claim rejection, lack of success in case notes, that's correct. It is learning and developing and growing with the data that we feed it and then predicting for us what we need to be seeing, searching, evaluating, and executing on even before it happens.
So the better the data that goes in, the better results that you get.
The more you can feed it, the smarter it gets. Exactly.
Okay. And then how is the system where someone's reviewing it like, oh, this is a great prediction or this is a little off. How do you work on that back end of like, well, you're training it, so oh nope, go back again, look at that. You missed something or that's off. We need to take this into consideration next time.
We did this 2 years ago. We started this Palantir workshop data management tool, and we didn't have an efficiency team. We believed, and we're on the misunderstanding that if we give it the data, it will learn and produce what we want, and we won't have to watch it. Wrong. We had to employ what we have now as an efficiency team, roughly 25 FTEs who look at the data, look at the predictability scales, look at the dashboards, and when we see patterns or nuances, we revert back to the data we're feeding it and either modify or tweak it to be sure that we're working in concert with the AI tool. I read all these articles about how AI is going to replace people. Agreed that there will be a replacement of people, but AI will always need shepherds. It will need the human beings in the room, making sure that what it believes it's learning and what it's producing is being fed the right information. And we only know that as the operators.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's part of it is taste. What do we want the customer to go through? And then it's the human that has to look at like, well, no, that's not what we're looking for because the AI can be trained in so many different ways. It's looking in the wrong areas. So you need that person that touch feel of, oh no, the customer, yeah, they might say this word, but they're really upset, like because of, and the AI might interpret it differently. So you need people there to help guide it and shepherd it, your words of how to get it to where you want it to go.
And it's not set it and let it, Karl. That's not how it works. You always need to be looking at the data sets, and the outcomes to be sure that you're giving it what the product needs to produce your greatest results. It's very much a work in progress. So we also have engineers who are experts in Oracle and Credible and ADP that sit in the background that help to feed the Palantir bot the information in concert with our efficiency team. So while we were able to reduce revenue cycle personnel and payroll personnel because of this data warehouse, we had to replace those positions with a different skill set to manage the tool that we had created.
Yeah, so back in, early 1900s when cars were replacing horses, there were people picking up horse poop in the streets because that's what was needed. As that, now we need mechanics, now we need people building cars, and that's what you're saying is going to happen in the AI future as well.
It creates efficiencies, it creates savings. We've seen it in our businesses that have gone from 22% back office costs to 7 or 8 through the
Mhm.
use of these tools. It's not a dollar for dollar. There is a savings, but there's another side when you squeeze the balloon that comes out where you need experts to be managing and monitoring what we're doing.
Do you have your own AI assistant, one that you then say, hey, check my email, do these other things? Or is it more, hey, this is Palantir, your software? Like, how personalized do you have your AI for all your employees?
We do not have any AI assistants.
Okay. Okay.
Up to and including me, I do not have one.
Okay. Because that's where I see a lot of this going. Like, hey, you have this AI, it knows you, it understands you. It's like, hey, Carl's probably feeling a little sad right now. He could probably use this episode of whatever to pick me up, like, and I think it can do dentist appointments. Do you see yourself, because of where this is going, do you see yourself possibly having your own AI assistant in the future?
Perhaps I pause because I've experienced how relying too heavily on an AI produced document or explanation without thorough examination can result in a bad outcome.
Mm,
So I would fear that if I sense Carl needs a pick me up, I would be reluctant to have if I said Carl needs a pick me up, send him a pick me up email with a link to this article. I would be concerned in the messaging not being conveyed correctly until I became really comfortable that that assistant understood my themes, my patterns, my feedback loop, my relationship. And I've seen data keyed into our warehouse that's produced reports that I've requested that
mhm.
were nothing grounded near reality because of how the data was being interpreted. So I'm a little skewed around just how great it can be. Look, this is all relatively new, right? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
when I was in college, I used a Magnavox Touch Titer word processor, right? You put a cartridge in and fed the paper. Didn't have a
yeah,
disk. It's come a long way in 30 years. I
yeah.
think it'll be very different in 5. I don't think we're going to need 30. So I think if we talk in 5 years, again, I imagine I'll have an AI assistant. But right now, I'm just a little concerned about giving it full autonomy and
Yeah.
having to review it versus do it yourself, send an email, feels very different to me than running an inquiry on how many folks were over provided in a substance use business yesterday for their
Mhm.
therapeutic outcome.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because if it, one, two, if it knows too much about you, it can manipulate you, right? Because, but then, you're right. And I think this is back to training it. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe I do want to pick me up, but hey, this is not what I'm looking for. I really need to solve this problem. I don't want to just soothe myself and forget about it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's how you can train, just like you training the data going in for Palantir, you can do the same thing personally. I find it fascinating, and I find this whole space, just such a an amazing ability to say, hey, there's so many different use cases for this. And I think as a leader, so if we can get back on the track of leadership, because I think a lot of leaders grow by reacting instead of designing. And I think a lot of things happening unintentionally, like how do you become more intentional with how you design your interactions, your feedback to employees, all these things that really can help you develop these systems, just from a personal standpoint, but also, hey, with software, with AI, and so on.
I liken it to riding a motorcycle, Carl, which I do in my free time. You have to use the notion of looking forward because what you see directly in front of you, you're going to hit anyway. You have to be out beyond that. Business is very much the same. You need to be looking beyond where you're traveling, doing cross checks, and making sure that you're on offense out ahead of the struggles and the issues before they become right in front of your wheel and you have no choice but to hit them. And that takes a lot of willingness to be open to feedback, constructive criticism, listening to the negatives or being very aware of the problems that exist and addressing them proactively than being reactionary. If we have to react, it's too late in our process. At Imperium, we use a feedback loop and cycle. We debrief every conversation and every decision as a leadership team with no titles. We're all equals in the room, unpacking how well we did, what got in the way, and what we could do better. And we're always trying to learn, do better, and be better than our prior work, much like an AI bot that's being fed data, that's learning and growing. We want to exude that as well as leaders and professionals.
Yes. Yes. Do you have a story of, some manager or somebody that you've led, and then how do you help them think in that way?
Sure, many. We have many stories of the CEOs that have joined Imperium over the past decade. They come in being the one. They're the one in their organization to being one of a group of executive rich CEO constellation operating under this centralized governance and management bot, as it were, managing your board meetings, your board minutes, your revenue cycle, your treatment outcomes, all being managed for you. And that takes a lot of trust and a lot of belief in the system and opportunity for growth, because then you can focus on not having to watch the needle in certain areas, but having positive outcomes in the mission, vision, or purpose of your business. That takes time for all people, leaders or otherwise, to have faith, to believe it's going to work, and then to truly support and get behind it. Karl, that takes anywhere from 60. I've had some executives who never bought into it that said, this isn't for me, and I have to move on and leave. And I've had others that have left and then come back because they wanted to give it another try. So it's really across the gamut of how this all works. People either buy in immediately, are slow to pick it up, feel like they can never pick it up and leave and realize maybe I should be more open-minded to it, come back. And those B backers that I call them, probably a third of our network are executives who came in, left, and have returned, are the greatest examples of seeing and understanding how this can be transformational and how we approach things.
Yeah. Okay. So what's one failure you've had, and then how has it shaped how you led? Because I think we need to have the pain strong enough to be able to make that change. Like you said, someone leaves and then comes back because the pain's like, it's still there. You need to do something. So what's one example of one failure that you've had, and how has it shaped how you led?
I have probably equal number of failures to successes in this business, Karl, in my career. I believe your failures influence your successes, and the more failures you experience and then modify your behaviors and learn from them, the more successes you will have. So most recent failure would be an engagement I'm involved in today around a deal transaction where I misread the intent of the seller of the business and what their hope and outcome was. I assumed that I understood what that was, and I moved in a direction towards my belief of what they wanted, forgetting to check in and ask and be sure that I understood what is your hope and what would you call a success. I had in my mind what was a success for me and what I thought would be a success for them, but I forgot to ask. Valuable lesson learned, because it really has ruined the relationship at this point. In a means of hours and a handful of conversations, I made a deal go 180 degrees in the other direction because I misread and assumed what the sellers wanted out of the transaction.
And so, not that that relationship can't be fixed, but I mean, sometimes it can't. So what do you do then? Like, and I think this is maybe more from a personal standpoint, like that voice in our head, right? We're like, oh my God, I can't believe you made that mistake. Why'd you assume that, right? And we often get ourselves down. Like I've been playing tennis with my son. He's 11, and he hits three good shots, and then the one bad shot, he's just like, ah. and just distraught and focuses. I'm like, dude, you just hit three great shots. Don't focus on just the one. So, from a personal leadership standpoint, how do you support yourself and how do you then say, okay, what's next? What am I going to do here?
Is he an only child, Carl?
No, he's got an older brother too.
Okay. So competitive, I'm sure, with him. I'm
Yeah.
sure you were the same way when you were growing up playing tennis. I think human nature is to focus on your failures and not your wins, no matter how many wins you have before the failure. I think he's going to be a hell of a tennis player when he gets older, if that's how he's approaching it at 11. I think that's the hardest part of being a leader or a person in any relationship is being able to do those cross checks and keep yourself in and under control when you make mistakes. People want to hear sorry and an acknowledgement of what they did. I think you have to go further than that. I believe a sorry has to be accompanied by what I did, what I learned from doing it, what I will do differently the next time to not do it, and if we're going to have a relationship, how you can help me when I slip and am going to do it to point it out to me so that I can be better in our relationship. I think that has to happen. How you
Mm.
correlate that to the tennis analogy, focusing on the three versus the one, I don't know how you would do that from a sports perspective, but from a business perspective, that's been my experience. You can't just say, hey, look, I'm sorry I said that. You have to explain all of those pieces so that the full picture can be realized in order to move the relationship forward.
So the system that I'm hearing is okay, you want a self-awareness of acknowledging that mistake, but two, being able to have the skill to explain where you are coming from, why you made that assumption or whatever, and possibly, trying to say, hey, I did this because I thought this was the best way forward, you know, and then, basically say, hey, I apologize. Now going forward, if you catch me doing this, let me know. So you give them that autonomy to say, hey, this isn't okay. We need to be able to do this, or we need to move forward like this. So then that allows them to feel much more empowered and confident that moving forward, it's going to be the way that they want it done.
Correct. And our intent is generally not the intent perceived. I don't believe we as people wake up in the morning and say to ourselves, you know what? My goal today is to grenade three relationships. We
True.
wake up
Yeah.
doing just the opposite. And in trying too hard to be helpful or to partner, I believe we sometimes end up creating peril because I believe people are inherently good and great. And we don't want to intentionally create these situations in our leadership, our businesses, or our lives.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We're not, most of us really, we are, well, it's thousands of years of neural networks inside of our brain of like, hey, be nice to this person. And like, this is how you build a tribe, right? But yeah, you're right. And I think as you're doing these things, you're trying your best. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to impart onto my son is, dude, you're trying your best. Yeah, you need to notice that mistakes. You can't ignore those mistakes, but then you also need to say, okay, what are we doing moving forward? And that makes the relationship stronger, but it also makes you a better human in the process.
Fail, fail fast, appreciate the feedback and honor what you learn, but have a
Mm.
very short memory about that failure.
Yes, yes. That's a great system right there. We have to clip that and put that in there. I love it. Okay. Okay, so you use AI a lot through KPIs, through all the things, your revenue cycle management. Where are you seeing the biggest lift, from just one particular area? Is it chart review, compliance? Where is it, and why is it helping so much?
Quality and compliance are the most impacted. Great outcomes therapeutically are improved through the monitoring. Duplication or repeated data entry
Hmm.
of the same key points in disparate systems, that reduces efficiency is one of the greatest outcomes of having a data management warehouse tool. I don't believe any of us in our business, 10,000 employees, realized how many duplicative entries we make for one data point into multiple systems that creates inefficiency and errors.
Mm,
So, an example, I come into your home to work with you and your son therapeutically around some counseling. And I log into my mobile app to record my time for my payroll. When I leave, I go to my PC in my car and I go into the EHR and I re enter the time I arrived and the time I left and I type in my note. Well, I clocked in from my phone at your sofa 5 minutes before and 7 minutes after where I noted I was there to and from in the EHR. Now I created a conflict. So had I just entered it in the payroll app, and when I got to my case note, the bot had auto-filled out of ADP what was already relevant for the EHR, and all I had to focus on were the empty templated areas. Now I have data alignment and integrity, and I'm doing the work once.
mm. Much more automated, much more precise.
Correct. It's Karl and his son's house. Address is auto-populated from Oracle, the general ledger.
Mm, yeah,
It's a very interesting process to see built out.
yeah. Okay, so I think a lot of leaders they're overwhelmed, right? They're already overwhelmed because of all the things they have to do. And now they're like, I've got to integrate AI into my company. I know I'm going to have to, but where do I start? And how should a leader think about integrating AI in without creating more complexity and maybe even more simplicity? And so the value is higher.
A lot of businesses are still using paper, Karl. And in order for an AI system to be efficient, we have to feed it data through another system, generally speaking. So we have to key that data into a system so that that data can be warehoused and managed. So the first discussion is, what are we doing on paper that should be moved to a system? And then what systems are we using that should be cross communicating to sit an AI tool over the top of? And then you have to start relatively small so that you can appreciate how the inputs create the outputs and what you're actually looking to achieve. That's led by a robust IT department that has a CIO who's very forward thinking and understands data and systems. You need to have internal managers that know what the outputs need to be and where the risks are so that the data you're providing it isn't excessive or unnecessary. So it takes a real shift in mindset and a leadership change around change management to move towards that type of system. It feels a bit disconnected during the process because you're moving former manual or human being interaction to a system that then requires a check by a human. But it is a leap that has to be taken. It will create efficiencies. It will eventually create savings, but it is a big lift.
Yeah. And I think this is where you've got to eat that frog, right? Like at some point, you've got to say, I've got to bite the bullet. I've got to eat this thing. I've got to at least start chipping away at this. And it might not be, you're right. A lot of it's going from paper. They skip the whole, the past, 25 years of integrating computers and software in a business, but they can't miss this. Otherwise, they're going to go out of business. And I think what's really fascinating is okay, like coming back to mindset, like you can't do it all, but what is a one small area of your business you can start to digitize and then be able to use AI to help you find those wins, to help you support your team versus take over, back to your point of like, hey, a lot of data needs to be understood before it can just go off and do all these reports or create all these opportunities for your company. So, okay, so as you are building out these systems from centralized, systems and this governance, but then there's these local teams that have to be able to follow these rules, but they need some autonomy. How do you balance that?
We use a global but local approach. We provide the global application, the global systems, and global infrastructure, decentralized to the local affiliates where their personnel are leveraging our assets to run their businesses.
Okay, can you give me an example so I can picture this?
Sure, we don't have any bricks and mortars at Imperium. We have no, all of our 350 back office staff are remote throughout the country. We all basically sit in a cloud. And in that cloud is all of our materials and all our infrastructure and all of our tool set and toolbox. Our companies can go to that cloud and pull out of it any other disparate pieces they want in the moment to leverage and use to run their businesses. There's
Mm.
no requirement for them to use our staff training module or our board governance module. It's available, it's out there. You can use it and leverage it as you see fit, but you have the autonomy to do so.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so they then is the feedback loop of, okay, this is working for me, this isn't, and it adjusted. How does that, because okay, you have all these different companies and then they're using it, but then do you adjust your global way of kind of managing and distributing this so that loop goes back and forth?
Correct.
What does that system look like?
The feedback from the local users is integrated into our system designs.
Mm. So
And if we,
how often do you do that? What does that cycle look like?
with every interaction,
Okay.
with every ticket or feedback that is put in, that feedback loop is followed. So you put a ticket in, your board portal AI minute taker didn't transcribe my 2 hour board meeting as efficiently. It was hung up on these 9 phrases. That's the ticket. We change that language in the note taker for their portal, for their board. We then revert back and let them know the change has been made and ask for their feedback at the next meeting to make sure that the change has been ensued. So it's a constant circular return on feedback both directions.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. So their bot, their agents, their AI system is particular to them and understands them. So therefore, you can just change their brain per se and then adjust it to what they need.
Correct. And in those 40 companies, there are primarily 6 different types of businesses. So if one of the boards has an issue with reviver claims being transcribed correctly, it's going to be applicable to 12 other businesses. So we make the change relative to that core within the overall system.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. So,
And back to your other question, if you had to pick a spot to begin with an AI tool,
mhm.
we chose staff because our business is 80% driven by payment to professionals, nurses, psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors. So that's what we attacked first with AI. Our largest expense exposure, staffing. So if I were running another business, if it were automotive repair, and our largest expense was parts, that's where I would sit an AI bot to tell me, all right, you're going to do 50 rotor jobs. So instead of buying a box of 5, you need to buy 50. That's where I would start with implementing the AI tools, your largest drivers of expenses in your business.
Yeah, because then that AI can say, hey, if you buy 50, you could get it at this price point versus this price point, and you're going to consistently do that. And then it can probably manage that inventory if it's like, hey, you're going up, you're going down. Hey, let's get 40 next month. And then you're
Correct.
not, yeah. And that's, man, AI is just going to help with so many different use cases like that. And every
And
company's
for Imperium, Karl, we transact deals. So we're the parent company of 40 companies, meaning we own membership interests in those businesses. We exist to go out and find other partners to come into our network. I use an AI tool to identify those partners. I key in the state, the city, the town, the services area, number of employees, how long they've been in business, how many people are on their board, is it founder run? I put all that into my questionnaire and I hit enter. And in 1.3 seconds, my bot comes back to me and spits out a list of the top 10 most likely companies that would take my phone call today.
That's amazing. Yep. Because it
And then it
knows.
brags about it, right? It says, we searched 300,000 websites in zero point 0.4 seconds and produced your report in 1.3 seconds. It gives me how efficiently it just did what formerly a decade ago we scrubbed by hand.
Yeah, that would take weeks and weeks and weeks of work in 1.3 seconds. Ah, man,
Yeah.
it's a different world today. And yeah, but then that offers or that creates the opportunity to build relationships faster. It's not like you're not going to be like, oh, yeah, I'll just let the bot do it and then, sit on your hands for the next 7 hours of the day. It's like, no, now you're out talking to more people. Now you're out going to more conferences or whatever it is that your business needs. This is changing so fast, so rapidly. And this is where I want to keep people grounded in the systems of, like you said, okay, don't focus on changing everything at once. Don't, because you're going to get overwhelmed. Our human brains can only handle so much. You can't process things in 1.3 seconds, but we still need to be the director. We still need to have that ability to say, this is where we need to start. This is why we need to start here. And then start to very small implementations of AI into our systems, which will make us more powerful and it will help the company drive more value for our clients, our customers, and so on.
And predictability indexes for your business that use patterns and themes, much like the NFL these days when they call plays, right? They know what the most likely play for success is with a 4th and 30 play call. Those
Yes.
predictability indexes are very important to the success of our businesses.
Yeah. And there is still that human touch of like, hey, this is a high stress situation. It's going to be a little bit different this go around because it's the playoffs, whatever. Now, as humans, we need to make these adjustments because AI is like, well, this is the scenario, but it doesn't take maybe the playoffs into account. And, as it gets smarter, it probably will. But, this is where it needs that human feedback to help work together in tandem.
And I believe in perpetuity. I believe the human feedback will never go away
Yeah, because really, we're designing these systems to help humans. We're not designing it to help AI
or replace humans.
replace humans. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
agreed. I
yeah.
agree.
Oh, this is fantastic. Where can people go to find out more about you?
www.imperium, INPERIUM.org, or my website, www.ryandeweysmith.com.
Ah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.